Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Govs on the Go Alumni Edition, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz Hoon. I'm the dean of the college. I also get to serve as host of the podcast. And today I have a very special guest, somebody I've been waiting to talk with, Sydney Hawkins, who graduated with a degree in communication back in 2020. Sydney, so great to have you on the podcast.
Grateful to be here. Thank you, Dr. Buzz.
And you know, I have a special affinity for you because you're one of the first alumni I got to meet face to face. And I did a cold email to you and I said, Sydney, we're going to be in town. Can you come and help us recruit future governors? And you were there. And I tell you, everybody and that knew you from Austin Peay just was so glad to see you. You're just the star of the show.
It's always a great reunion. I tell people all the time, I got everything plus more from what I needed from Austin Peay. So it is always a great reunion when I can meet with old professors or colleagues or classmates. It's just always a great time.
Well, there's mutual love here, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But let's give everybody a life update. Let's tell everybody what's going on in your life.
Awesome. Well, I just moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. I work at WKRC Local 12. It's a local news station here. You may hear an echo because my apartment is like I still need some furniture, so it's like halfway empty. So I moved about a month ago as the weekend anchor here. So I anchor a morning show, 3-hour morning show on Saturdays, 1-hour morning show on Sundays, and then I report or fill in as an anchor during the week.
How exciting. A new city.
A new city. Coming from Memphis, Tennessee, where I spent 2 years. So that was an experience that I'm sure we'll talk about, but I'm enjoying the new city so far. It's a new feel. It comes with new excitement, and I'm really grateful to be here.
Okay. Well, as we like to do on the podcast, we like to start at the beginning. And you mentioned that you grew up in Tennessee, so you are a Tennessee gal. And so let's talk a little bit about kind of early influences. What was it like growing up for you? What kind of things did you like to do as a young person?
So as early as I can remember, when it comes to activities, I think about 4-H, very random, but we had a 4-H club at our elementary, middle, and high school. I grew up in Jackson, Tennessee, my younger life. So Madison County 4-H was the county 4-H department, and they would come to our school, and they also had an after school situation that my mom allowed us to go to. My mom was a single mom, so it was her, my sister, and myself. My sister did sports. I was more of the band nerd, but we kept her busy. And 4-H was kind of an escape away from home, I think, for her, because the counselors and people that coordinated that really took us under their wing. And it was kind of like, again, a home away from home. So that's the earliest activity I can remember. Of course, there were agricultural things that we participated in. I remember going to a sewing camp at UT in Martin. Just a lot of random things that I think kept kids busy, but I do remember just how vocal I always was, and just how I was not afraid to speak publicly.
That's been my impression of you, and I'm so glad you said that, because I've seen you on the air. I've seen you also in a public gathering when you speak before crowds, and you have such a great comfortable sense of your own self. And so did you recognize that early on, that you had this sort of self courage or determination?
Thank you. I think it took me a while. I can say I remember the aha moment, and that was in high school. But I still, and this is something that I still kind of struggle with. I know that I've always enjoyed being an advocate for people or for something. But something that I still struggle with today is, okay, Sydney, how much should we speak up or how much should we say? So that is something that I recognized younger, and didn't know what that looks like. I remember my senior year of college. I toured Austin Peay my junior year, loved it, applied, got accepted. And my mom was like, Sydney, don't you think you want to tour more places? And I'm like, nope, I want to go to Austin Peay. And that's where I went. And I remember applying to the communication department, but I didn't know in what capacity. And my aha moment was my senior year in maybe like a history class. I was standing up and giving some type of impromptu speech. I don't know what it was about. I think it was about, it couldn't have been the election because that was in 2017. It was something that I thought was important to me. And that I was trying to persuade my class members to also believe it was important. And I just remember saying to myself, like, Sydney, the gift that you have with public speaking, that could be something that you do long term. Again, I didn't know what that looked like. First semester of college, I was introduced to APSU TV News, and that was a Friday weekly broadcast, a mock broadcast, and did that throughout my entire college history or college career, did some internships, and I knew what I'm doing now is what I wanted to do.
Wow. Okay. Well, you mentioned, and we are so glad that you came from Jackson to Austin Peay. And I know that because yesterday the faculty were back on campus, and we had a lunch, and I got the chance to go over and talk to some professors during the lunch, and I told them tomorrow I'm talking with Sydney, and all their faces lit up and about and just said how wonderful you were during that period of time. So let's talk about your time over in MMC and what kind of classes did you like to take? What kind of professors? What are your memories from there?
Dr. Buzz, you have to forgive me because my memory, I remember the significant things and I remember maybe happy moments or really sad moments, but I just remember a lot of people that I started freshman year with. We had those same public communication or just the classes that you had to take to fulfill your degree. Those were the people that I saw my junior year. I was a pandemic grad, so my last semester of college, of course, was online. But I just remember being with the same colleagues and classmates throughout my entire career. Some people maybe dropped out or switched field, but you remember being connected to them. APSU TV News, a huge part of who I am today. I think it's a lot of people, when I sit at the desk and anchor, people are surprised at just how comfortable I am, especially having not been doing it for a long time. And I tell them, Austin Peay, we did more anchoring than reporting. We will put together some packages, but APSU TV News is more of an anchoring style rather than out in the field reporting. And I got a lot of that experience in my first market, but I think I really grew on the desk because of APSU TV News. All of my professors, I rave about them all the time because they had real world experience. Dr. Terrell, Dr. Bullis, they were really, I guess, influential with knowing how scary, but still scary the industry could be, but it looks similar to a lot of people. A lot of people maybe graduate and they start in a smaller city to get their feet wet, whether it be radio or television. And I just remember them always giving me advice. Dr. Bullis, referring me to just different things in the community to give me that real world experience. So I just, again, I can't thank the people, the professors, and the people that I've worked with enough for just my experience at Austin Peay.
Well, you mentioned the anchor desk, and I think it is so important for our students to get those reps, to get that opportunity to get the in front of a camera, to read off a teleprompter, to get a feel for that, to get grow in their own confidence. And the way you do that is you do it repeatedly. You just continue to get that feedback. And I know as a former professor that taught that type of performance, it was often a fine line because you didn't want to ruin a young person's confidence, but you wanted them to grow and be able to see how they can find ways to improve. And I'm sure during that period of time, you saw just a load of growth from yourself.
Oh yeah. Even just looking back to Austin Peay and my first market and my second market and now where I am today, just the growth. And I think early on I learned to give myself grace in the sense of I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to be Gail King. The first time that I sit down somewhere, even today, I understand that there's a lot that when you move to a new market, there's kind of a learning curve. And what you did so easily in Memphis may not look the same here. And it takes practice, it takes repetition, confidence, like you said, and also just understanding and grace with yourself.
Yeah.
So yes,
I
I can.
like that. I like that. That's a well said, and hopefully our students will see that and hear that. You also were involved with Student Government Association, and how did you become involved and why?
Thank you for reminding me. I tell you, I forget some things. So I remember my freshman year. I remember my mom sitting down with me before college, and she was saying, Sydney, unfortunately, I didn't save or wasn't able to save as much money for college. So I relied really heavily on scholarships, and I also worked a part-time job while I was in school. So I just remember I did not live on campus my first year. I lived off campus. And, the first year, a lot of people, I heard people saying how they met so many fun friends in the dorms and how they were just meeting people on campus where I was off campus, so I wasn't having those same experiences. So I remember saying, I want to do something. I want to join a club or an activity to get a chance to meet people, but I didn't just want it to be any random thing. And this is going back to me advocating for people. So I'm like, student government is perfect. Didn't know that I would also fall in love with APSU TV news. So there was a little fine line where I couldn't report on certain student government things, but it worked out. So yeah, I just remember wanting to meet different people and connect with people on campus as I commuted to campus. So I, the first year, applied to, I think, run for a Senate position, and I campaigned and I lost. The guy that I think I campaigned against, he was on some athletic team, so he had a lot more votes than I did. And then I think I went for another position. This was the tribunal council, where you just kind of made sure that student government was abiding by their bylaws. And then if you got a ticket by APSU police, you could appeal your ticket to us. So I thought that was a pretty cool process. I sat on that department. And then the next year, I think that was my freshman year, sophomore year, I don't remember. I remember being a part of, maybe I was on tribunal sophomore year, and then junior year is when I ran for student body president. And then I was student body president my junior year. And then my senior, I did summer school throughout. Again, I was very relied on scholarships, and my mom also has always preached to us to not accumulate so much debt. So I found some summer school opportunities, scholarship opportunities. So I was a semester ahead. So I had junior year, and then I had one semester left before I was graduating. And that was the semester that the pandemic came to the US, or COVID-19 came to the US. And that was online.
No.
So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. I
Yeah,
know.
no, that's great. And I did not know you're student body president, but now it makes sense to me. But you also mentioned, I think that you had been working pretty much throughout your teenage years into your young adult. And to me, I've always been impressed with that because I think that says something about work ethic and learning the value of it could have been easy to just accumulate debt. But as you said, your mom said very early on that, let's not do that. And there's something about even working, a minimum wage job that you learn something from.
Oh yeah. I got my first job at 15. I want to say I was ready to get my license, and my mom was hesitant because I have an older sister. So everything my older sister did, I faced the consequences.
Of course.
She wrecked her first car. My mom was like, "You're just gonna go do the same thing, so you're not gonna drive for now." And I'm like, "Mom, this is a rite of passage." So she didn't want me to drive. She didn't want to get me a car, but I was super determined. So I got a job at 15, and I saved up $1,000 and bought my first car. And she was really impressed by that. So she ended up supporting me and helping me along the way. But I started working at 15. And I think 16, 17, I just had kind of after school jobs. I would use that for just kind of like clothes and other different stuff. And I think I continued that in college. I worked at like a daycare for some time. And then I was a nanny for a family there throughout my college career. And then I was also a tutor for APSU academics, or APSU student services. It hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been that long.
Right.
But yeah, that just allowed me, just having my hands in all those areas in Clarksville, it really allowed me to just stay connected in the community, and really never be bored. I think it also, as you said, taught me responsibility and just being able to juggle different things at once. I just really appreciate my entire experience. I wouldn't change anything about it.
So you, as you said, you were a pandemic graduate, but how was finding that first job, and where was that? What was that experience like for you?
So finding my first job, I remember applying to dozens, if not maybe 100 jobs before graduation.
Mm.
So we were online that final semester, and I just remember applying. I knew I wanted to start in TV news. I had heard the stories and I knew I wanted to start on camera. I've heard the stories of people applying for one position, maybe on camera, and then the hiring manager talked them into a producer role because that's the only role they had available. And now they're stuck as a producer because they don't have that on-camera experience. So I had that experience as well. I applied to places, and they're like, "We don't have this available, but we do have a web editor, or we do have a producer, or we do have a photojournalist." And I'm like, "Thank you, but no thank you." So I just remember applying to a bunch of places. I got so many no's. I also remember, I had it and then I lost it. I remember saying to myself, I didn't want to limit myself. So I had lived all over Tennessee. At that point, the smallest, and I think still to this day, the smallest market in Tennessee is Jackson, Tennessee. I didn't want to go there, but I didn't rule any other station out. WVVJ in Jackson, Tennessee. I want to say market 170 something. So I knew I wanted to start small, but I didn't want to limit myself. And I knew I didn't want to be in Jackson. So I just had three things kind of that I kept top of mind when I was applying. So I remember applying, interviewing. I got I actually did not apply to this place. I put my reel that I put together through Austin P, APSU TV News, as well as an internship that I did in Jacksonville, WJXT, the local station. I was able to put together a reel. So I put that reel on YouTube, and one day I got an email from what would be my news director saying she saw my reel and she wanted to talk about an open MMJ, that's a multimedia journalist position. This was in Wausau, Wisconsin, very small city in central Wisconsin. She sent me what she put together as a reel of younger journalists starting out there and where they end up. I loved what she had to say about just the opportunities, and everything that she told me in my interview is what actually happened. I've worked in places where that is not true. So I'm very grateful for that experience. And that's where I started my career, Central Wisconsin, Wausau, Wisconsin. It was, I think, market 134. And I started as an MMJ, multimedia journalist, and I quickly moved my way up to morning anchor, and I was there for about 2 years.
And you dealt with the cold.
I dealt with the cold. My very first live shot, I remember, was on a frozen lake. It was the start of ice fishing season. Had never been ice fishing, still never went ice fishing. I got an invite several times while I was there, but as a Southern girl, that's just not my thing. Um, so yeah, it was an experience for sure. There it wasn't that diverse. I love the area, but I knew that it wasn't my forever home. But due to the lack of diversity, I challenged myself to find those stories. It started with Black History Month. I wanted to find Black history in Wausau. There was a huge Hmong heritage population there. Hmong Heritage Month, I believe, is in April. So I told those stories. Hispanic Heritage Month. And those stories were essentially branded into cultural conversations. So I was able to grow in that way. I was able to grow as a reporter in MMJ, and I was also able to grow on the desk. And it was a really great first market experience. I don't think I would change that if I could do it again.
Oh,
I think
that's
I would
terrific.
feel awesome.
And it leads me into this question for you, Sydney, because I think that this is now you're in your third market, right? And so, there is a period there where you're learning what the important issues and concerns are of that community. But as you said, you have the ability to still bring in information about other topics, as you said, to Wisconsin there. How do you explore, and balance those kind of things as a young person?
As in exploring the market, but
Yeah,
also,
how do you find out, what's important around here
yeah,
and how can I help contribute and bring in, like you did in Wisconsin, you brought in all those wonderful topics and stories to educate and inform people.
yeah.
Each time you move, I'm sure it must be a little bit different.
Oh yeah, and every city has its unique issues. For Memphis, it was crime, and you would hear people say crime is an issue here, and those were the stories that we told every day. Here in Cincinnati, I've quickly learned, or specifically Hamilton County, that's the county in Cincinnati. Property tax is a huge issue for people in this area, and a lot of it, because we are in a digital world, is just being nosy on Facebook, scrolling on Twitter, seeing what people are
Mm.
just casually talking about. Hey, I work for the local news. Do you have a minute to talk about this? And then another huge part of it is actually being out in the community and talking to people. And it can go as a simple conversation of just being somewhere and you're like, just kind of having a conversation, and then you're like, oh, I just moved here, and this person's like, have you tried this place out? And just honestly just having those real connections and conversations with people and seeing what's important to them and their communities, because every community will have a unique thing that they tout or a thing that they are hoping to change. So it's really just connecting with people both online and in person.
And you mentioned something that I think is an extremely important quality for a journalist, a reporter, anybody that wants to be in this business is the ability to listen to people, and to really start to take that mental note of what you're hearing and taking that in.
Yeah, that is a huge, I think, proponent of the job because sometimes too, people may be a little hesitant and they may not just blatantly say what it is the concern is. They may hint around to it.
Mm.
And a lot of times you kind of, especially when it comes to on camera, as we are an on camera medium, on camera interviews are what we like to retrieve so that we can put that on the air. So when you are talking to people, you kind of maybe have to pull it out of them because they may not be as comfortable. And you may have to just kind of coach them through it and understand, help them understand that you're hopefully trying to be an advocate for them and trying to get solutions for them, trying to hold the state, local leaders accountable. But they have to kind of give you a little bit for you to help them out.
I'm sure you see different challenges in your job in different areas. I'm sure, as you mentioned in Memphis, with the emphasis on crime or just sort of that being such an important issue, it must be a little bit hard to balance out in terms of hearing such negativity all the time and talking about negativity all the time. Is that your biggest challenge?
So it's funny because as I grow and I'm growing all the time, my biggest challenge yesterday is not the biggest challenge today.
Oh.
So I think I'm always faced with challenges, but when it comes to balancing out just what you take in, I think you are the only person who can do that. I think when I first moved to Memphis, growing up in Jackson, knew the things that were associated with living in Memphis. So I was just kind of aware of the crime there, but I tried to set boundaries when it came to just how much I took in. Whereas if I try, of course, I work the morning shift there, and I always try to watch the evening news so that I know what's going on the next day when I go in. But if something is too heavy for me, I'm not watching the news at night. And that's okay. I'll make sure that when I wake up in the morning, I'm reading articles and getting caught up in another way. But I think it's important that young journalists especially understand that they are the only people who set their limits and their boundaries. Someone may be able to take in as much crime as possible, and that's okay because that's them. But when it comes to you, you just kind of have to set your own limits and your boundaries.
No, that's good advice, and hopefully, as you said, each person can understand when they get into that situation that they're going to have to find a way to determine what's right for them.
Right.
So, certainly, social media, has impacted the industry, and the fact that I'm sure you're asked to have a social media presence, because the more people know about you, the more likely they're going to turn in to watch you, and then that's going to help your station. How are you dealing with that part of the job?
It's funny because the same way that I will turn off the news if it's too much, I will turn off social media. Instagram is typically the only app for me that seems more like, I guess, not work. This is, I guess, the first market that I've worked in where Instagram kind of is work. Twitter, Facebook, those are considered work. My station here also uses TikTok. So in Memphis, I would delete my apps. When I felt overwhelmed, I wouldn't deactivate my account. I just would delete the app and just kind of take maybe one or two breaks, 1 or 2 days as a break. Here, I guess maybe I haven't gotten that overwhelmed yet, but we'll see. We'll see how I navigate it. I think it's also important to understand just what comes with social media. It's advancing. AI is a thing. So understanding what's real, what's fake.
Mm.
But the biggest thing for me is just understanding your boundaries in any aspect, whether it be online or in person.
Um, the As we talked about the news industry and things that continue to change, and you've been in it, you've been in three different markets, and even though you're still early in your career, what things have you noticed in terms of changes within the industry other than what we've already talked about?
Social media, I know we discussed that. I think the way that stories are being told, the roles in the newsroom, that is changing. I think MMJing is more newer, where you're required to do it all. In Central Wisconsin, as an MMJ, I got my own video. I edited my video. Well, first I had to pitch a story. So once that story was pitched, the news director approved it. You're going out in the community, you're interviewing someone, you're shooting any video associated with that story. You're coming back, editing that package or editing the both side. You're presenting the story either in the news studio or you're setting up your own live shot. So you have what is called I guess a backpack, and you are able to remotely do what we're doing, and that sends it back to the news station to put on air. You're setting up that live shot in negative 15-degree weather, if that's what is happening. And then at the end of it, you're writing your web story so that the web article is on there. So that are the requirements. That's the requirements of a multimedia journalist. In Memphis, I did all of that minus setting up my own live shot. I was never live by myself, but I was required to do my own interviews, do my own video, web story. So I think that as the industry changes, there are a lot more. Here, I'm solely a reporter. Fortunately, I don't have to do all of those responsibilities. But there are, I think, as the industry changes, just roles are looking differently. The way that stories are being told is differently. I know some companies are pre-recording newscasts and then putting it on the air. So that of course requires less people in the newsroom. I don't know. I don't know what the future looks like. I know that social media in terms of news today doesn't look like when I watched the news maybe 10, 15 years ago. You didn't see news stories online as much as you do on every platform, YouTube, TikTok. You didn't see that. So again, I don't know what the future is, but I can tell that it's fast paced and it's changing for sure.
Well, I think that what I feel good about is that you have this history of being such a wonderful advocate for things that you feel are important. And no matter where you are, I feel that you will be able to do that. And that gives me some good feeling about the future of the at least news in Cincinnati. How's that?
Thank you. Thanks.
So we always like to end, Sydney, talking about what kind of recommendations you might have for students. You've given some clues about how you've developed as in your profession. What kind of recommendations do you have for our students?
Um, so one story, if I could, it'll be quick, but one
Mhm.
story that I always think of when I think back on my career is sitting with a professor at Austin P. And this was an outlier situation. This was not the typical conversations that happen, but this professor, for some reason, when I was applying to internships, told me that I was aiming too high. And I remember feeling, yeah,
Mm.
I remember feeling so taken aback, just like your reaction there, because I thought that that's what we were working towards since freshman year. We were taking the classes, we were doing the audio recordings, we were doing 10-minute radio boothings. So when that person said that, I was really taken aback, but I was also inspired and fueled more to say, okay, I'm going to show you that I'm not aiming too high. I'm actually aiming at where I should be aiming. And if you're not going to support me, I'm going to find someone else who is. And if that's just myself, I am. And I just remember that was when I was looking for internships and was also getting a lot of no's, just like looking for my first job. And I am just so grateful that I did not take that piece of advice that I was aiming too high, and I kept aiming high. So I think it's just so important to block out the noise. Life is hard. I thought that we were going to dive into some of those deeper issues here, maybe on the next episode, but life is hard, especially post-grad. You are trying to figure out how to just navigate a life on your own. Even if you're not moving around like I'm moving around, even if you're in the same city that you've always been in as an adult, it's difficult. So I think there are always going to be people that want to put you in a box and want to limit things that you are capable of achieving. So I think it's so important to block out the noise.
Yeah.
If you have a goal in mind, work towards that goal. If you are feeling like there are people either older or the same age around you that aren't helping you achieve that goal, and you need to change who you're around and get around some people that are helping you to achieve it, because I don't think anything is unachievable when it comes to career goals. So I think that is something that I would say to my fellow Govs.
Yeah. And, before we depart, because I think you brought up a good thing that I want to explore a little bit. I'm never sure how comfortable people are talking about how tough life can be. And you are somebody that's been in 3 different cities, and one was much farther away. One was not too far from people, but in each instance, I think I certainly want students to know, I mean, you were just a young person up in Wisconsin by yourself, not knowing anybody, I'm sure. But you blazed your own little path there, and you found a way then to go to the next area and to the next area. And I mean, that is about survival, isn't it?
It is. And I think what kept me going was knowing that that was not my forever home. I was there for a reason. So I was always working towards something, whether that's making sure I have the most up-to-date reel, or trying something new on air, or trying something new off air, introducing cultural conversations, those stories that had never been told, but were always there in the community. That was huge. And I just remember being able to connect with those viewers, and they're like, oh, we feel so seen. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for telling our stories. And just kind of helping to shed light on the diversity that was already in the community. But I knew that I was there for a reason, and just not wasting my time while I was there. There were some colleagues. There's actually a colleague that I'm going to connect with this week. She is in Albany, New York. That was her second market. But some people that I am forever connected with because of my experience there. But I think the biggest thing that I took out of being there was just understanding that when God places me somewhere, it's for a reason, and that I need to just figure out what that reason is and stay determined.
Yeah, well said. And, this whole idea of that, I think that young people have to realize too, as they go into the market, so often somebody has this idea, if they want to put you into this box, like, I want you to fit into this box and not be out of the box at all. And wherever you go, you have to determine, as you said, your own boundaries of where you want to be.
Oh yeah. I think that was there in Memphis, a boundary that I had to set that was not planned, but it happened. And I think I'm very grateful for was I took a month off for a mental health break. That was, there were several things that kind of led up to that decision. But I remember just sitting and thinking about how passionate I was about journalism, TV journalism, broadcast news. And if something didn't change, I would be forced to leave and not be able to do what I was passionate about. So I just remember myself and my doctor saying, okay, Sydney, you need to take a beat. I'm going to prescribe you a month off. We're going to take some time off. I don't want you to check an email. I don't want you to watch the news. I want you to completely unplug. And I don't think I would be in Cincinnati if I didn't have that time off.
Wow. And that and you came to the conclusion after that this is what you are passionate about, and this is a gift, as you said, a gift from God that allows you to be an advocate for other people.
Yeah, a lot of times when things are feeling like, or this is just my experience, but I feel like a lot of times when things are just feeling like they are not going well, or you have everything pushed against you, like I just feel like you're in the wrong environment. And my doctor actually said that. He said, Sydney, you were never going to thrive in an environment that was not set up for you to thrive in. And I just remember just the series of events that led, not working in a work environment that was supportive, and that, again, wanted me to succeed, in my opinion. Just understanding that I was the only person that could change my circumstances. So again, that is important to me, setting those boundaries and knowing when enough is enough.
Yeah, and that's I think a great lesson for our students to understand too. There's no job, there's no situation that says you have to struggle like that and put yourself through that just to maintain employment. Sometimes it's good to say back out and remember what's important to you. And so you've been in Cincinnati, and are things looking brighter?
Things are looking a lot brighter. I can honestly say I have never worked in an environment that has been so supportive. In all aspects. Like I had some apartment issues when I first moved up here. My management was really understanding and supportive in that area. My colleagues are like, anything you need, we are here to support you. When it's filling in on the anchor desk in the morning, helping me with something as simple as pronunciation so that I'm not going on the air looking stupid. Sure. I just have never worked, honestly, in an environment in this industry, because this industry can have some just personalities. People, not everyone is a good person. And I have just worked with some people who have only thought about themselves and is not a team player. And to be in an environment that everyone is understanding that the goal is to put the best product on air, and they're supporting their colleagues. It is like the first couple of weeks, I really didn't, I'm not going to say I didn't know how to receive it, but I just was not used to that. So like seeing people be so supportive, I'm just like, oh, this is a real thing. So yeah.
Are you trying to trick me?
Right? I'm really enjoying it, and I just feel really grateful, but I think I would not appreciate it as much without previous experiences. So as difficult as this journey has been, I'm really grateful for all of the series of events.
That is good news.
Thank you.
So we're going to end on there, and we appreciate you for giving up some of your time and helping to tell some of your story today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all of our viewers out there for checking out the podcast. We hope that you will continue to join us as we profile some of the outstanding alumni we have here in the College of Arts and Letters at Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.